Sherri, I did thank Pat. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak with Sherri a little bit longer.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Sherri, I just want to touch on quickly on reincarnation in a two-part question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When our biological host body expires, what is the process of reincarnation? Like, where does the living consciousness go before it enters a new body?
Okay. Is that part one? Is there another part?
Yeah, that's part one. The second part is that have you ever what is the transition or shift toward making reincarnation easier for ourselves?
Make it easy. Oh, I love your question. Okay. Well, when we leave this body, there's something that metaphysicians call the veil. And the veil is it's just a way to differentiate between dimensions. You know, here we are, we're in the third dimension, and where does the energy that is us, our souls, where does that go when we leave this body? It goes to the fourth dimension, which encompasses the same space. It's just at a higher frequency. Okay, so that's where it goes. Now, as far as making reincarnation easier, there are all different reasons that we will reincarnate. Some of us might have some karmic debt that we need to repay. Some of us might want to come into body to help other people move forward, help them with their karmic debt. And there might be experiences that we want to have. But the bottom line for almost everything in our incarnation is that we want to move ourselves forward spiritually. We want to learn what we need to learn. We want to grow. We want to move forward. So as far as doing things, whatever we do now could affect our next incarnation or the one after that or the one after that. You know, we were talking about bullying earlier. My guides tell me that bullying is very much a window of opportunity, and it's a window of opportunity for both parties, the bully and the one being bullied, because there's so much to learn there, you know? So if we bully somebody now, chances are we're going to come back in another lifetime and we're going to do something to set that right, because karma's just energy, and energy has to be balanced, right? It has to be balanced. So that's part of the purpose of reincarnation, to balance our energy. So doing things to help our planet, being nice to people, you know, watching the things that we do and say, those are things that we can do to create less negative energy that we're going to have to balance out in the future.
Right, and I also believe that using this metaphysical aspect also has self-healing properties as well. And maybe, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but when you're in that plane or dimension, you're surrounded by your divine guides and your loved ones during that transitional period. So that has to also be a positive influence on your next stage of being.
You know what? You are like reading my mind right now. The thing that I didn't mention before that I was just waiting for an opportunity to get to is that what my guides have told me is that we plan what's going to happen to us. When we are planning an incarnation, when you were sitting down just picture yourself at a great big old conference table when you were deciding to become Bill. And your guides are there, your counselors are there, your parents, people who are going to be your parents in the next incarnation were probably there, people who are going to do great things with you, people who were going to be relationship villains and kind of act as catalysts for you. They were all there, and you planned the things that you wanted to accomplish in this lifetime. So
right.
we are surrounded, they say that we travel in soul groups. And sometimes, you know, you might be the husband, sometimes you might be the wife, sometimes you might put on the black hat and play a relationship villain for somebody to open a window of opportunity so they can learn a lesson that they want to learn. But always we're surrounded by souls that we have a relationship with really through many incarnations. And then we've got our guides too. And shut me up if I'm talking too long, Bill. Just jump right in, okay?
No. I'm listening.
what I do is nothing that everybody can't do. Everybody can have direct communication with spirit just the same way that I do. And that's really what I feel like my mission is in this lifetime, is to help people learn how to do the automatic writing, learn how to do the meditation with intent. And by the way, nobody has to buy my books to learn how to do that. Just send me an email through my website. I've got the handouts I use in my workshops, and I will happily email them to everybody and anybody who wants them. But direct communication with spirit is, I think, one of the most important things that we can do to make our lives now easier, because when we are in contact, when we are listening to our guides, we make better choices. Who among us has not had a gut feeling about something? If we follow that gut feeling, probably our lives are going to be easier because we're going to make a better choice. If we go against that gut feeling, a lot of times we create situations for ourselves that are very, very difficult. So that's what my guides are all about. That's what my books are all about, and that's what I'm all about, helping people start to pay attention to spirit, who is just waiting and trying their best to make contact with us so they can help us make the best decisions possible, so that we don't have to go through 10 windows of opportunity to learn one lesson. We can learn it closer to the ground floor, learn it with less drama, learn it with less pain. And all of that goes back to what you just said about self-healing and how do we transition into the next incarnation and make the next incarnation easier.
Sherri, I've made mistakes in my past. I think most of us have. And the main thing is the commitment to change. And I believe people can change. Some people, of course, they have some kind of mental or psychiatric issue. That's a whole different case.
Right,
but,
right. There's a connection there that's not right. That's something else.
Right. But you know what? Your positive energy that I'm getting off of you and the message and anything that we can do to make ourselves better as human beings in a positive way, and also to have that hope and that vision of being in peace and love and caring, that's what I seek in my life. Like I said, I've learned through my mistakes. I've moved on, and I think I'm a better person because of it, because of what I've been through. And that's the connection that I also look to make, also like what you're describing. And I think it's great what you're doing, really. I really think it's great.
Earth is a schoolhouse. And what you call mistakes, and of course, I've made them too. Those were opportunities to learn and to grow. And you've obviously made changes, and you feel like you've put yourself on a better path. I do too. When I got thrown against that wall and someone spit in my face, as a business person, what I was thinking in my head was, what is the protocol when someone spits in your face? Because I had never had such an experience before. But you know what? I'm glad that he spit in my face, because that's what I needed. That was the impetus. That was the moment that my whole life changed. My whole life changed. And I'm not going to thank him in this lifetime, but in the next lifetime, I'm going to put him up for a Spiritual Academy Award, because he did the job to wake me up so that I could move forward. Does that make sense?
Sometimes it takes a negative to make a positive.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Sherri, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you tonight. And Pat,
you too.
Again,
thank you.
I will talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay, take care, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night. And Sherri secretly liked it for a second. No, that was just a joke.
No, I just didn't know what to do. How do you react?
I don't think anybody would know what to do. Okay, I'm going to go real deep on this one.
Okay.
I have I believe I do believe in people that have psychic abilities. Mm-hmm. I also do believe there's a lot of fraudsters out there. I believe that I've had fraudsters on this program.
Oh.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of great psychics that have a talent. Anyway, this is a long story that I'm going to make really short. One psychic, I heard something said one time. A psychic was talking with somebody who had lost a loved one, and the loved one who had passed on was communicating back through the psychic, saying things that only this person would know about. I mean, you could tell there was no put on, no front, no nothing. I mean, there was things that just nobody would ever know. And the person who had passed was talking about doing things in her life that she always wanted to do, and now that she had moved on, she was doing these things. She was riding horses. She was doing all these different adventurous things that she always wanted to do throughout her life. Do you believe that is a I guess this is kind of a tough. This is kind of maybe a complicated question, but do you believe that the person that passed on and that's able to channel through the psychic or speak through the psychic, do you believe that these experiences are, I don't want to call them wishful thinking, but they're things that they're imagining they're doing? Or do you think that these are experiences that maybe they enjoyed and took part of channeling through somebody else, if that doesn't sound too crazy?
That doesn't sound crazy at all, and I think it happens both ways. I know that there are people out there who are fakes and who pretend to have abilities for the purpose of what? Money, right? To rip people off.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, there is that, but I'll tell you, I had an experience I live in Florida now. I live in Orlando, and not too far from me is a town called Casadega. And Casadega is a town of mediums and metaphysicians and spiritualists. Well, I went to Casadega, and I went to have a reading. And this woman named Bertie was going to do my reading. I had never met her before. And we had to go up the stairs to get to her office, and as we're going up the stairs, she's having a hard time breathing. And I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, okay, what's this all about? And she says, listen, who passed that had difficulty breathing? I said, I just have no idea, I don't think anybody did. And that she just kept harping on it. We got to her office, and she's going, listen, something with lungs, what's going on? Somebody with lungs and breathing, something happened, and they're here. And I said, you know what, I just don't know. And then she said, it's Doris. Doris is here. And I went, oh my God, Doris was my ex-mother-in-law, and she died of lung cancer less than a year before. And when my husband and I divorced, he told me that his family did not want to speak to me ever again, and so I never had any closure with my mother-in-law. Never, ever got to talk to her again. And she had messages for me, and it was the most amazing thing, and she did bring through things that only I would know. So I absolutely do believe in that, but I do believe that there are phonies out there as well. And I'll tell you this, too. When I first started to do automatic writing, my mother was very, very supportive of me. But she wanted to test me, and I guess I really don't blame her. So one day, and this doesn't happen to me very often that a family member will come through, but my grandfather came through, and he had a message from my mother. And I don't really do that kind of thing, but I passed it on. And she said, well, I want you to ask this, this, and this, and bring me back the answers to these questions, and then I'll know if it's really him. Mm-hmm. And so I did, and she said, yes, he's the only one who would know this. And so then, she believed that it was my grandfather. I didn't really have any problem believing it was my grandfather. And you know what? I never heard from him again via automatic writing. Never again. He got the message through that he wanted to get through to my mother, and that was that. So, I absolutely do believe it, yes.
Do you think that, well, let me get to a couple questions that were sent in. I don't want the listeners to think we're ignoring them. One of the questions was from our good friend in Baltimore, said, has Sherri been reincarnated? If so, what, if any, previous lives did she experience?
Now, there's a great question. My guides do not want us to get hung up on past lives, because if we get hung up on who we were before, then it makes it very difficult to concentrate on what we need to learn now. That said, a lot of times we have some residual energy from past lives that we carry over, and sometimes we need to look into those things. And so that's why we have people that can access the Akashic records and find out what happened in a past lifetime that might be affecting this lifetime right now. And I do know about a couple of past lifetimes, not a lot of them. One that I know about, and this will probably not surprise anybody who's listening, I was burned at the stake as a heretic. And, yes, and that's one of the reasons that I had such a hard time coming out of the spiritual closet. I did not want to write these books at all. I just wanted to sit down and write with my guides, and whatever they told me, great, and just keep it a personal thing. I did not want to write these books. I did not want to go out in public. And I still have a great fear of that, even though I moved past that fear, because I know that I need to do that. But I believe that a lot of that comes from that lifetime, where I was burned at the stake as a heretic. I think that's something that kind of sticks with your soul. Also, I found out I had an Akashic record reading, and I was told that I had a past life in the 1920s. And I thought that was very interesting because I have a lot of feminist attitudes. And, I didn't burn my bra or anything, but, I'm all about women's rights. And if you think about it, in the 20s, that's when women got the vote. There was a lot going on there with women being able to move forward. So I thought that was interesting, that I would have a lifetime in the 20s. Also, I like the dresses that they wore back then very much. I have an affinity towards that. So those are the two lives that that I think have something to do with this lifetime right now.
Something you experienced. Want to take another call?
Yeah.
Okay. Caller,
did I answer that one okay?
You sure did. Caller, welcome to K-Talk. You're on with Sherri Cortland.
Well, that was fascinating. I thought you were taking calls off air. In any case, that question I didn't hear until about 10 minutes of the previous hour. Tell me about this guide from Arcturus. Hasn't that gone orange giant and is no longer habitable? How do you have guides from?
There's different dimensions. It's not. Yeah, remember that there's different dimensions, and so it doesn't have to be a place that can be inhabited by a body.
They hang around this long?
You know what? I can't answer that. I can tell you what I was told by my guides, and that is that the energy of Arcturus is like a way station for souls that are reincarnating on planet Earth.
Really?
So they tell me.
Yeah, because I understand. I hear that the Arcturus star is about 10 billion years old, and it's left the main sequence, and so it's not habitable, at least not physically.
No. And from what I understand, it's not a physical. It's not a place of physicality. We're not in body there. It's like just a way station, but in another dimension.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for the call.
Interesting stuff, Sherri.
Yeah, that was a good question. All of your listeners are asking such great questions.
Well, yes, they are. They're good. They're great listeners, and we appreciate them all being here all the time. Another question from you. This comes from our good friend Red on the other side of the pond. On the other side of the world, where it's probably 4 o'clock in the morning or something, but he listens to us faithfully all the time, and we're so gracious. Red writes in and says, does a spirit ever communicate in a foreign language to Sherri, like Chinese or very old tongue dialogue like Old English or Irish or something along those lines?
No, I have never had that, probably because I speak English only. I have never had that. I have seen other people have that experience, and I just watched a show. I think it was called the Ghost in My Child, something like that, on LMN, and the child just started to speak in a completely different language, and that's because there was just residual energy from the past lifetime. Little children, they can remember these things. It's not like beaten out of them. the way that that it is when by the time we become adults, we don't believe these things quite so much as when we're a child. But I know that happens. But no, to my knowledge, no. And I'm wide awake when I'm channeling, so I think I would know if that did happen.
Okay. Just curious if they would.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. You believe in reincarnation. This is another question. It says, you believe in reincarnation. Have you ever tried to channel your own past lives or others?
I want to very much. I would love to know everything about every past life that I've ever had. But my guides have asked me not to do that because I am the type of personality, I am an extremist. And once I start doing that, that's all I'm going to think about. I'm going to think about every past lifetime, and I'm not going to pay attention to the work that I have to do here. And I'm not really sure how much I want to relive being burned at the stake.
Right.
Not
a fun thing.
No.
Getting thrown up against the wall would be a lot easier.
That was enough.
How many times, this is a question for me, how many times do you think, okay, let's back up a little bit. I thoroughly believe that here as humans on Earth, whether it's through many reincarnations, whether it's many times around the block, who knows how many times we go around. Maybe even let's go ahead and throw evolution in there to the point of saying, well, maybe you felt you were a witch and you were burned at the stake, and somebody else feels that they were a great warrior. Maybe somebody else feels that they were a shark or a piranha or a lion or a dog or whatever. This energy, and I feel, and I think a lot of other people feel, that while we're here on Earth, it's maybe, it's called a little bit of a test. It's an experience. We get to experience these things. Do you feel that the spirit, the soul, the essence that makes you, me, and all these listeners, each other, that essence, that energy, that spark has been around for an eternity?
Wow.
And will it be around for another eternity? And maybe eternity is a bad word because that, to me, I guess that's open-ended. But do you feel that spark, that soul, has just been around for a long time?
Surprisingly, that was addressed in great detail in my third book, Spiritual Toolbox. And stuff was channeled to me that I was scared to death to put into that book, and nearly did not. I nearly did not. And it comes back to just exactly what you're talking about. And what my guides dictated there was that we are all sparks from the Creator. So at what point did we separate from the Creator? I don't know. But the spark, the original spark from the Creator, is what we call our higher self. And our higher self can have multiple sparks that can incarnate on their own and gather information and learn lessons, and all of that information goes back to the higher self. So how many lifetimes in how many different places? Impossible to know. But everything seems to be a quest for knowledge.
Okay.
A quest for knowledge from what I gather from my guides.
Well, let's go down this path a little bit. Let's throw that three-letter word out there, God.
Okay. That's why I was afraid to write the book.
Okay. And you talk about, you mentioned Creator.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of religions believe that, and again, it's subject to interpretation, but there's a lot of religions that believe that we as humans are here as humans, and when we pass on, we become gods because we were gods to begin with.
Right.
Do you believe that when you look at that term and call it Creator, and we came from that, do you believe? I mean, God is a human term. Do you believe that we kind of all, and I use the term we being, whether you want to call it spirit, essence, soul, energy, whatever we want to call it, it all originated from one place. I know some people I've heard and talked to different people that have stated that people that have passed on have communicated back that there's the human emotions are still there. We kind of are when we move on, we are who we are here, but it's a lot of forgiveness, a lot of love. There isn't judgments made. I guess what I'm getting at is, do you believe we possibly all originate from a central location, experience life, and then determine whether we're going to experience it again? Maybe go somewhere else and experience it in a different dimension, in a different way. I know that's a lot of stuff I've thrown out there.
Yes, and yes. I think that it's very possible that there's more than one creator. Guy Needler has written several books. Beyond the Source is one of them. And he goes into this in great detail, as a matter of fact. What I get from my guides with regard to who we are now, any particular incarnation, and then when we go back to the other side and becoming part of our higher self again. See, this is the question. This is such a very, very, very important thing that you've brought up, and so very deep. I have always wondered if there's a higher self, and the higher self can split itself off, and then, you know, these little partial souls are having these incarnations, and then Sherri Cortland dies, Sherri Cortland goes back, becomes part of the Source. How can a medium channel Sherri Cortland if Sherri Cortland doesn't exist anymore, right? Because there's reincarnation, and my soul is going to go on and go up wherever and do whatever it's going to do. And so I asked that question. I asked my guides that question. And they said that our higher self has complete memories of who we are, our personality and what we've done and all of that. And, of course, every incarnation that we've ever had and everything we've done in them is in the Akashic records, so it can be accessed that way also. But if someone is wanting to speak to us, and, you know, there's a talented medium, and they can connect with the higher self, and the higher self can channel back that entity that was Sherri Cortland. So that's what they tell me there. You know, I think that there has to be a reason for all of this. And, you know, that's why I do this, because I'm just constantly on this quest to find out the truth of why we're here. And I feel like, you know, back in the 20s, well, Hans Holzer, when he wrote Born Again, you know, reincarnation was a foreign thing. Now reincarnation is more or less mainstream, you know. But why are we here? And if God is so good and God is so great, why does God make us suffer like this? Why do we have to go through all of these terrible things? And the answers that I've gotten from my guides, and this is, of course, in the books, is that God is not hands-on. The Creator, the Source, whatever you want to call it, is not hands-on. We plan our lives. We plan the things that are going to happen to us, even the crappy things, like an automobile accident opens many, many windows of opportunity for growth for many, many people.
Right.
Right? So we plan these things. And we don't just plan one instance. We plan multiple windows to learn the same thing, so that if we don't catch on the first time or the second time or the third time, we're still going to attract the same type of situation to ourselves, so that eventually we're going to wake up, we're going to change our attitude, we're going to change our behavior, we're going to take some action so that we learn this lesson and we can put this aside and move on to other things. There's got to be some reason for this. What is the reason that we continue to reincarnate? We learn all of this stuff. We send this knowledge back to our higher self. Our higher self sends it to the Creator. What's the purpose for it? I don't know. I don't know what that is yet. That's what I'm searching for. I know Guy Needler is searching for that. I know there are many people out there who are searching for that. And you know what? Let's talk about God, and let's talk about UFOs too. Let's connect those for a second, because I can understand why people would be hesitant about what I do, channeling spirit through automatic writing. But I don't see how anybody can even question for 1 second that folks from other planets have been here. I mean, there's just so much evidence here. The Nazca lines to start with, I mean, there's just so much. Isn't it possible that the ancient Egyptian gods were really just visitors from other planets?
Could be.
We've gone in a whole different direction here, but
no.
You started it. You started it, Pat.
No. I totally. I believe that. I believe in certain things. I think a lot of people do. I think there are things that when we experience things in life, we experience horrific things. We experience abuse. We experience evil. We experience death. We experience great loss. And as humans, I think the human emotions kick in, and that's what we are. We're human beings. We get sad, we cry, we mourn, we want. I kind of hope and I kind of think that when we move to that next level or move back where we were before to move forward, I hope that we understand those things and say, hey, this was a test that we had to get put through. I don't know. I really don't know. That's kind of the big, huge question, and I do agree with you. That a lot of people say, well, there is no God. How could He let something like this happen? Well, maybe that's how it's supposed to happen. Maybe it's so we can experience it, and if we do reincarnate, we had Tom and Sumasari on the show last week. And Tom has been channeling with a guide since he was the age of 15. And one of his guides, or his main guide, indicated that he is reincarnated 3 times and has no intentions to do it a 4th, 5th, or whatever, because he feels that his job is now to go help others. There's just so much out there. And again, with the alien, we talk about ETs and UFOs and aliens and all that other kind of stuff. Who's to say the next time around you don't decide to pick and be the little gray, or to be the reptilian, or to be whatever?
Absolutely. I know for myself, I hope that if I do come back again, that the next planet that I go to, or the next dimension, I hope that no animals have to eat each other, and that human beings don't have to eat animals. I find that kind of thing awful. And I wonder, why does that have to go on? Why to live do we have to eat other living things? That's something that just bothers me and just sticks in my craw. And so, I'm just hoping that I don't have to deal with that in the next incarnation. And I'm sure that we all have things that we don't like. And I have to wonder, too, if the things that we are very attracted to, for instance, if we're very interested in Egyptology or the Chinese culture, that's probably an indicator of a past life, I think, in that culture. And the things that we are drawn to and the things that we like and don't like, probably, if you spend some time meditating on it, will shed some light on what we're supposed to be learning and working on in this lifetime.
Exactly. Another question that came in for you, get your thoughts on this, and let's talk about your books and where people can get your workshops and your books. Sky writes in, says, does Sherri believe that a truly evil soul can come back as a good soul, or vice versa?
Oh, I love that question. When I was writing my first book, Windows of Opportunity, and they were talking about how we plan our lives, and the first thing that I came back with was, oh yeah? Well, what about Hitler? Tell me about Hitler. How could that be allowed to happen? First of all, if there's a God, how could that be allowed to happen? And secondly, what about that soul? What happened to that soul that was Hitler? And here's what they said to me. They said that there are our computers, our brains are like computers, and sometimes things go wrong, and synapses just don't operate properly. I'm not a doctor. I don't really know the right terms here. But things can go wrong. And something went wrong there. And there were opportunities for people around him to stop him, but they didn't. They didn't, and it was allowed to go on. And what they tell me is that from the other side, that they were working very, very hard to put things in motion to put a stop to it. But then, how much interference, what can they really do from the other side? It has to happen through human beings. So they were working on it. But as far as that soul that was Hitler is concerned, I was just so interested in that because that whole history, time in our history, is so abhorrent to me. They said that soul is currently sort of in an induced coma, that when he got back to the other side, that he was so upset and could not believe the things that he did and how did it go that way. And, he's the guy who was Hitler. He started out as an artist. His life could have gone in a completely different way. What happened to him that it went that way, that broke his mind, And so anyway, yes, he can come back. Eventually he will come back. And who was he before he was Hitler? And who is he going to be afterwards? Completely different people. But right now, that soul, according to my guides, is undergoing intense therapy and, induced coma stuff, that kind of thing.
Unbelievable.
I know. Interesting, right? But that was the first thing that popped out of my mind because I wanted to know, too, what about all this evil? Where does this come from? How can it be allowed to go on?
But maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe it needs to be here. Maybe, it's...
For the most part, it is.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what's not. According to my guides, murder and rape are two things that nobody sits around a planning table and says, okay, I'm going to rape you on December 13th, 2015. That doesn't happen. I'm going to murder you. No, that they say does not happen. But pretty much everything else, and I'm talking crappy stuff, we plan to experience so that we can move forward. We can learn a lesson and move forward.
I agree. Where can our listeners get your materials, your books? Tell us about your books. Tell us about what's coming out. Okay.
Well, my 3 books that are out right now, Windows of Opportunity, Raising Our Vibrations for the New Age, and Spiritual Toolbox, you can get those in Barnes & Noble stores. You can get them on BNN.com, Amazon.com, OzarkMountain.com. They're in a lot of little stores. You can also order them through my website, SherriCortland.com. And the new book, Guide Group Fridays, which I'm so excited about, Pat, because I wrote this one with my sister, not just with my guides, but with my sister. We collaborated on it together. And she still lives in the Hudson Valley. She's in Middletown, not far from Pine Bush, actually, Bill. And so that book, the publisher, it's not going to be out until December, but the publisher is offering a special pre-publication price of $12 for it. So you can get that pre-publication offer on my website as well. But as I said earlier, nobody has to buy my books in order to learn how I do automatic writing or meditation with intent. Just write to me through my website, and I will happily give you the handouts that I use in my workshops.
Well, your website has just got a ton of information, and again, it's SherriCortland.com. People need to go and take a look at it.
Well, that's because I write a metaphysical column for Examiner.com, and I also write for the Eden magazine, which is another metaphysical magazine online. And that brings me to a question that I would like to ask you, Pat.
Sure.
I would love to write a column about your show.
Oh, be honored to have you do that.
Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, then I'll get in touch with you next week sometime.
Our show we've been doing it for, we're either in our 4th or going into our 4th year. It's hard to remember sometimes, but we feel that I'm not a ufologist by any means. I'm not a paranormal researcher. I'm not a psychic. I kind of
want the truth. You're searching for the truth.
I'm kind of a researcher's researcher. I like to bring different people on the show and let people be open-minded. Because again, as I stated early on, we first started a couple hours ago. It's hard to believe we went through 2 hours almost. We've so many of us, myself included, and especially people my age, we were raised under, I don't want to say under different values, that's the wrong word, but we were raised, under different beliefs and different belief systems, traditions carried down through families. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, not that many years ago, you just didn't talk about it, around the table or whatever. I'm not saying that there are people that weren't, but a lot of people just didn't talk about these subjects, whether it was reincarnation or if it's evolution or ETs or flying saucers or whatever. I mean, you just didn't talk about it. And even today, it's sad that there's a lot of professions out there. I believe airline pilots, they don't talk about stuff like this. Government people don't talk about it. But more and more of it's coming out.
It's changing.
Yeah, it is. It's about being open-minded, and people are questioning themselves. They're questioning their past, their feelings, their religions. I don't put anything down. Here in Salt Lake City this weekend is the LDS General Conference for the LDS Church. I was watching some of that today. Very strong family values and belief systems and what have you. But yet I know people in the LDS faith that question things. Again, for so long, I think as we go through life, we are told, we're told what to believe, if you will. And I think as we get older, we start to open our eyes a little bit more and look around.
I think questioning is part of waking up.
Exactly.
We have to think for ourselves. We have to question. There's no other way to move forward. To stay stagnant, we can't evolve.
Right. And would you say that in the past few years, that evolution, at least the evolution, I feel the evolution of knowledge in the past couple of years has highly accelerated itself. Not that many years ago, it seemed like it was pretty quiet. Programs like this, I mean, I look back at someone who encouraged me to do this was Art Bell. Art. I think Art is a great interviewer. I think Art throws, and I'll just be honest with you, I think he throws a little bit of sarcasm in. I think he put a little bit of his own charisma and twist on things. But he got people thinking about things. But now there's more and more shows through the miracle, and I do call it a miracle, of the internet, the technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're able to share things and talk about different things across the world. And people are being open-minded, and they're opening up about things.
Well, do you remember earlier when I said to you that I was afraid to come out of the closet because I was worried about losing my job?
Right.
Well, with Facebook, there really is no hiding. There just isn't, And when word got out at work that I wrote this book and what this book was about, the first book, I was very afraid. I was afraid. And what happened though was this. I had people that I was so shocked, the people that you would least expect to ask about UFOs and reincarnation and karma, all grabbed me, pulled me over to the side. They didn't even know that they were asking, and said, you know what, this happened to me, and I'm so happy to see that it happened to somebody else, and I'm so happy to have somebody to talk to about these subjects. I think there are a lot of people in the closet, just like I was in the closet, who are just dying for shows like yours and to have somebody to talk to. And you know what? This experience on your show has been just so wonderful, because think about the questions that your listeners have asked me. I mean, they're just such great questions and show such deep thought. And I think that's evolution,
It is.
This question, that question, and then we build from what we learn, and that's how we evolve. And it shows like this, and everybody that participates in making up the show, that is helping take the human race to the next step, to the next level.
It's a long, long road and a long path.
Yep.
Sherri, we've got to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for being here, and would love to get you back on again. Your website, sherricortland.com. People need to go out there and look at it. And then when can they can start to pre-order the book now? Is that correct?
They can pre-order Guide Group Fridays right away. The other 3 books they can get right now. Guide Group Fridays will be mailed to them in December, but they can get it for the lower price now if they pre-order.
Sounds great. You have a great weekend, what's left of it. Thank you so much for staying.
Thank you.
You stayed up late. You didn't fall asleep.
I haven't been up past 9 o'clock in I don't know how many years. I'm just like Dolores Cannon, but I'll tell her it wasn't bad at all, and that she needs to stay up and come on your show.
She needs to get on here. That's right. We need to get her on the program.
I'm going to send her an email.
Okay, and then I'll and if you want to write up something, whatever you need help with, I'd be glad.
I'm going to get in touch with you next week. I'll send you an email.
Okay, Sherri. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Take care, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, Sherri.
Bye.
Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.